Hello, everyone. I'm Sol, and I am the Capricorn ascendant lady from Norway who who are here to teach you about Saturn from a coaching perspective, Saturn from a practical perspective, Saturn from a um, energy perspective. I'd love to use this word, energy perspective, because that's how I feel. Is the best way we can use the astrology is to actually see it from an energy point of view. The chakras, the energy centers, in relation and communication to the planets, and how everything is interconnected, and how you develop certain glands in your body. Chakras and glands are aligned, and that again creates the body. This is my take, this is my perspective on astrology, mostly because I combine it with healing, and I combine it with a certain kind of psychotherapeutic and meditative method. That's the kind of work that I've been doing for the last years, and it's absolutely a passion, because astrology is consciousness. But what we really need to change, what we really need to heal, is our practical, everyday, day-to-day life. And no planet is more grounded in a way than Saturn. Saturn says, hey, cut the crap, stop the excuses, get over yourself. Now, hello, smell the coffee. What do you think? You're here forever? You can waste your time thinking about life, or you're actually going to live it. So that's like the kind of tough love that Saturn gives us. And it's not easy. Saturn is a huge subject, as we've seen. It's we've got the karmic variety, and you're going to see as well that there are some conditions to the archetypes. Both Tim and Georgia will present in their modules different kinds of aspects of cultural imprinting on our values and minds, etc. And that, of course, changes the archetypal expression of anything. And I mentioned it a little bit in my intro video that we did for the community before we started class, that the way that we've been educated, the way that we've been raised, the way that our parents showed us through pointing fingers but not exactly walking as an example, has led to a lot of interesting rebelliousness on the inner level, resistance towards authorities, fear of making mistakes. It created this kind of grumpy Saturn energy, which is like yelling in your ear, like that chip on your shoulder going, it's not good enough, you have to do better, get over, get out of bed. Like guilt, guilt, guilt. And being raised by the invocation of guilt, that if you don't get out of bed, you're a lousy human being. Or if you don't do as I say, you're a lousy human being, is what creates this atmosphere of resistance towards Saturn. Saturn is, agreed. Saturn transits can be rough. It's not a time for how can you say, not lie? It's not a time for cheating. Oops. It's not a time for trying to figure out what kind of shortcut do you want to use this time. Saturn is not a planet of shortcutting. It's not a planet of excuses. It's a planet of correction, of detail-oriented focus, of correcting karma, and of going into the details and seeing why is it this is not working. So it's very, very practical. It's very pragmatic. And from an esoteric or spiritual point of view, it's actually relating to magic. Many might associate Mercury with magic. Mercury is the hands. And yes, There is a connection to magic and Mercury, but the master, the creator, the alchemist is Saturn, in my point, the way that I see it. Other astrologers in the world of astrology, we are all free to have our own opinion. They might disagree, and that's fine. I'm just presenting this as an insight that I've come to after working on my own Saturn and, reflecting on Saturn from an archetypal point of view for many, many, many years. And this alchemy, what does that mean? What is alchemy? Well, in alchemy, we turn whatever is painful into gold. In alchemy, we see the value of what we go through. And we manage to extract the essence of any life experience and use it as something that creates the opportunity for us to go to the next level. So Saturn is that going up the steps, kind of ding, you leveled, you are now, you now have other strengths available, you now have powers previously unknown to you available, now you have wisdom, now you have experience, now you have true self-confidence, now you have true authority, now you are beyond your addictions, you are beyond your dependencies, you are what we call a mature human being, a free human being. And this is what Saturn is all about. To set people free, actually. To set people free, but in not the kind of freedom way that we're used to seeing freedom. We're used to seeing freedom as like something like I'm on vacation all the time and nobody's making any demands on my time and I can just do whatever I want until forever. A lot of people think that's what they want in life, and then they get there and then they realize that's very, very boring. Nothing is happening here. I'm not developing. Like, I grow into inertia. Now, as a lifestyle where you're on vacation all the time will definitely dull the senses. The interesting thing is that a lifestyle that's a little bit on the edge, where you're climbing your personal little mountains all the time, putting yourself out there, giving yourself the challenge, where your senses are sharpened and your intuition is heightened and you are there because there's a certain element of danger involved. If you are not there, you'd fall down and probably break your neck, for instance. You have to pay attention. You cannot be sleeping, doozing off into some la la land and drinking wine all the time. You have to be present. You have to be there. You have to show up. Otherwise, everything goes to pieces. That's being in a situation where human beings actually develop, they grow. And that's what we, on a deep level, actually yearn for. We long for evolution. And then we resist it because it's more energy demanding than just doozing off. It is definitely at the edge of your comfort zone where you feel always like, can I do this? Am I ready? Like this kind of fear, like will I manage? Am I crazy now? Like that's being on the edge of your comfort zone. That's being pushed a little. That's being gently and compassionately pushed into a bigger world in your own life more. So Saturn is definitely an initiator. It's definitely something that pushes you further down the road to the next level. Yeah, that's some people who has this strongly go into this, "Mm, now I've done everything. I know that it's not it's not the goal that is the gold. It is the road that is the gold." And these are the people who show us that our ambitions, even though sometimes motivated by the dreams of riches and gold, aren't necessarily dependent on the price itself. Our ambition to walk and experience the walk, our desire, maybe that's just it. I'm just desiring the walk. And the irony is that we're resisting the walk. We just want to get to the gold. Just take me to the end of the rainbow. Where's that pot of gold is waiting for me? And you didn't realize that you have to go there and pick it up yourself. And when you walk, you realize that's why I'm doing this. It's the walk itself. I'm sure that people didn't get enlightened in church. They got enlightened on the way to church. And I think it's a very interesting thing to think about, whatever it is you're trying to master in your own life, because it's not necessarily about a career. There's vanity in the world, many vanities. One of them is having this fancy career, as if that was in itself something that made you happy. I met somebody yesterday who had a wonderful career. It's like, oh my God, are you kidding me? He was like, he was giving out the story. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's a wonderful career. But, he met me, and you just don't meet me and start blabbering about your life without any reason. And there's always like, I'm like, wonder what this will be. And of course, eventually it came. He wanted to change path because he wasn't happy. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, sure, sure. All these riches, all the gold, and no happiness. So, the vanity of the the glamorized goals in life, like I want to have a wonderful husband, or I want to have a fabulous career, or I want to have a great body. It's not necessarily giving you happiness, but learning how to get there certainly teaches you something. And then you realize that's the kind of thing you like. You like that. This development, this self development, this maturing of the ego, this massaging of the ego, this disciplining of the desires. That's what you like. That's the thing that sets you free. And then I can do everything. If I don't want this job, I'm just going to let go of it, and I'm going to do something else, because I developed my skills so good that people are actually wanting to work with me. Huh? I'm precise. I show up. I'm here. Do, 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 do. There's no kidding around with Capricorn, huh? So, although we might find Capricorn lessons to be a bit rough in the edges, it's definitely what we call tough love, and it's still love. And I'm sad that the conditioning, the feedback loop that we always go into, and especially astrologers and anybody who studies astrology should be super aware of this, that we can change these archetypes anytime. And we certainly did. There are these, what we call the distortions of the archetypes, because we live in a feedback loop. It's not just that the gods communicate with us, we communicate with them. It's a co-creative project. And if you constantly think of Saturn as a pain in the butt, a fearful transit, a painful lesson that you just have to learn, there's going to be a lot of fear around astrology for sure. And for some people, there are, the fears of astrology. I've seen it, I see it quite a lot, actually. I see this kind of fearful attitude, like, oh my God, I'm getting this transit coming up soon. What? Will I die? Will I be ill? Yeah, I can sympathize, because I know life can be such a tough ride, like it demands so much from us. And we have memories. And I think that's because of our memory bank that we have a little trouble letting go of this fear, because we've seen so much pain happening before. So you can't just go to that. It's like you have on inner levels, like somebody registering it, all shit. Yeah, there's a little, rejection. That's 20 rejections this month. And and then, like, the accountant of all your pains. And whenever the accountant of all your pains, let's say she was here or he was there, and I come in as an astrologer and say, just think positively about it. Saturn transit is going to give you a lot of creative opportunities to correct your course and fix your life. And then the accountant goes, yeah, right. Well, darling, if you saw all the failures that I've been through, you'd know that I wasn't that easily persuaded into believing your woo-woo and your bullshit and the God stuff. Opening up to grace. What does it mean? What is grace anyway? Huh? What is grace? I don't know if you can ever explain grace. Some people call it luck. I think that's a very sweet way of calling something you earned. Luck. Grace is meeting God halfway and receiving a little bit of that God magic into your life, so that you can convince the accountant of all your fears and pains that, look, sweetheart, there's nothing to worry about. This time we come better equipped. I've learned something now. I integrated into my persona. And now, maybe, we don't have any guarantees. Maybe my path towards, where I'm going will be more successful. At least I have to try it. I only have this life, right? And the accountant goes, okay, I'll have a little faith. And then what the persona then does is meeting God halfway, saying, okay, man, woman, whoever, divinity, I'll surrender. I'll do my best to prepare for this. I'm going to stay and do the preparation. I'm going to get up in the morning. I'm going to do my seva. I'm going to do my service. I'm going to do my rhythm. And the rest is up to you. That's all you can do. So grace, you don't know what grace is until it's touched you. You, by the touch of grace, you know what grace is. It's hard to explain. And it's not even luck, because grace is what opens doors. Grace is what makes it possible for you to evolve energetically as a human being. It opens the heart. It opens the gate to the future, and it closes the gate to the past. So it helps you and heals you and makes you capable of going from this endless repetition of tendencies, the karmas, into a joyful expression of your dharma, which is just when you feel that you can be grateful for life again and feel blessed, even though Monday mornings are still Monday mornings. They never seem to change. I love Monday mornings. Actually, I'm easy that way. So that's the kind of approach that I use for Saturn, because I find it to be a very fruitful and creative approach instead of a more gloomy kind of approach. And the development of willpower is part of the gift of Saturn. It's like, oh, you have to be able to develop some willpower. It is a cardinal sign. So it's related to this, the will to do something new. All the cardinal signs are related to the beginnings of new seasons, the beginnings of new chapters. And if you look at karma, there is this excellent, I know Kai Pasha spent a little time, or a lot of time, explaining it, and he, I just wanted to add a little point here, which I found extremely interesting in understanding karma in its nature. What is karma in your life? It's a tendency. It's like a pattern that you've repeated over and over again. So it's just there, automated. It's one of these little programs that you find on your phone. It's already there when you buy it and you can't get it away. Very annoying. So karma you can see as, let's say you're on the top of a hill and you have a ball in your hands and you just let it roll downwards. It doesn't take any effort, right? It just goes downwards like through gravity. It's gravitational. Jesus could walk on water. He was anti-gravitational. That's Jesus is part of the Capricorn mastery. The levitation bit. Why does these masters levitate? What is it with this levitation thing? Which is one of my primary goals in life, and getting there is very, very interesting. But I really want to levitate. But the interesting thing is that if you threw Saturn on a puddle of water, a big one, huge one actually, it would float. That's the lightness of Saturn. And it's funny because we associate Saturn with lead. It is also super solid, and then it can float. What a paradox. And that's exactly when it starts to get interesting with Saturn. It's when you understand that mastery means mastering the paradoxes. Vulnerable, strong, child, adult, shadow, light. It's mastering the paradoxes. And that makes you light. What people lose energy with is that they go from one polarity to the other. They lose energy in their emotional dramas, polarities. A master would just go boom, to the middle, to the spine. Why is it that Saturn is the spine? It's the midpoint in your body. And it heals that vertical path that connects you to some superpowers on the higher levels, which then again elevates everything. And hopefully one day you and me can walk on water. Would be fun. It's like the Aquarian wet dream. Like I wish I could levitate publicly so that all these people can see that gravity is not real. Oh my God, yeah. Well, that's the beauty of being Aquarian, which I am. It's like, what's your dream? Public levitation. Now back to something more serious, Saturn. Now the other end, to get there, if the ball just falls into gravity and everything, your tendency just goes into gravity, it's like you just let it loose. And then the beasts arrive, the demons, enters. It's that point of least resistance that we have a tendency to go to. I'm just going to, I'll go that path of least resistance. That's karma. That's the South Node, huh? It's the path of least resistance. You don't have to do anything to get there. It's just gravity. It's what you gravitate to naturally. Tendencies, qualities, expressions, patterns, like instead of directly confronting people, you avoid them. Instead of being present, you space out. Instead of looking at yourself, you blame others, blah, blah, blah. You know, there's like a ton of tendencies we have. The other one, you know, getting the ball up again, it's like, imagine yourself, you're at the bottom of this hill and you have this huge ball that you need to get up the hill. Like, you have to push it. You are at the back of the ball and you have to push it up. It's not like dropping the ball naturally and just falls down. You don't have to do nothing there, just nudge it. Now you have to push it, and you have to walk, and you have to push it, and then to walk. That's how we develop new qualities, and that's why it's so difficult, because the gravitation of the past is just so immense. So it's not an easy thing, you know, coaching. It's not a quick fix, Saturn. It's not a release. Eventually there will be this ding, you leveled, you came to the next level. But that's eventually. And it takes time. So Saturn requires a lot of patience, more patience than we ever thought we had. Now, before I get into this, I want to also share more into this. I also want to share with you my PDF, because I made this beautiful thing that I could show you all, like a PowerPoint presentation. And I'm writing this, Saturn, the teacher of getting over yourself. Get over yourself. Get over yourself is what Saturn says. Come on, you don't need that. But that's the 10th house culmination point. There might be some lessons that Saturn gives you, and we will look deeper into this, of course, if he goes through more personal signs like Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, where there's a more karmic need to actually get into yourself. You get over yourself above the horizon and you get into yourself below the horizon. I can show you here. I have this little thing that I brought here. If this is Aries, right? That's Libra. I didn't quite find an appropriate zodiac to put around this, but all right. So this is Libra. It's the first quadrant. This is Cancer. It's the second quadrant, we call it. And that is Capricorn. That's the beginning of the fourth quadrant. So these are the four corners of the year, and it is also the beginning of the four seasons. Now, wherever you have your chart, this is a very helpful model to understand why is it you got this specific focus in your life. What is it that is really meaningful for you? If you have the sun in the fourth house, career is not exactly where you find your happiness. It might not be. It might be something that you feel pull you away from happiness. Maybe you need a more quiet life. And the ambitions of society is something that you just have to find courage to reject in one way or another, because you need to be where you're supposed to be. So the sun shows you where your creative expression is supposed to be. So here, if it's in the subjective self, like I have my sun here over in the second house, I'm born with Capricorn ascendant. I have second house sun in Aquarius. That's where I need to be. So I spend a lot of time at home. I'm in the Taurus house, and I spend a lot of time alone, actually. In Taurus, we spend a lot of time alone. I used to think that that was something that was wrong, but now I understand that it's something that I really need. I have a hypersocial chart, right? And Saturn is in Gemini, so you can imagine I spend a lot of time together with people before I realized I had to actually not spend so much time with people and actually spend more time with myself in order to get into my creative sun expression. Very interesting. So Saturn helps the sun to its expression in one way or another. It helps the sun find its path, its expression. So it's not for everyone to have a wonderful career. These are the outer values. We have to be capable of inner authority and listening to our inner values. So this is under the horizon, and it's all about getting grounded into yourself, knowing yourself, especially this first quadrant between Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. Get to know your instinctual self, and then you know what you have to offer to society. Before you know that, you have no idea what you have. And then you get classic copycats or whatever, like people who are just trying to imitate life. But then there is another part of the journey, and that's the objective, getting to know yourself through the connection to others, getting a more objective view on yourself. And this is the upper hemisphere work. That's where we become social human beings. And that's very important, because if you only live in your subjective self and you forget that there are other people in this world, you might be somewhat incapable of listening to other people's need and incapable of doing the group work that you're supposed to do. I mean, what do you need all these talents for if you can't cooperate with what is around you? You have to give your gifts to somebody. So no man is an island unto themselves. And this is what we learn through the upper hemisphere. We learn that you're not alone. You have to cooperate with others. If you want your marriage to work, you have to look at your shadows. And, the seventh house, the eighth house is very self-confronting. It's very hard in that way. It's, you get to know your own shadow material. And that's a very helpful healing journey, because if you were left on your own, you would not see that you needed others to grow further. There's a limitation to how much we can grow on our own. And then we come to this point of culmination where the sun changes. In our northern hemisphere, at least, this is the darkest point in the year. It's the year of less light. And when the sun enters this through winter solstice, you have 3 days of equal amount of light. It was just the same amount of light. And let's say you were a Viking in the north and you lived 1,000 years ago. There was no electrical lights on Earth at that point, in the skies. They were completely clear and you could talk to the stars. And you saw this, that every winter happened the same. Oh my God, we're going down. Is this death or what? And then at winter solstice, when the sun stopped, there were 3 days now, about the same amount of time that Jesus was dead. 3 days. And then there was more light. Aha, something new has been born. It's the emergence of something new, a new soul, the child, the master child, the king. The king is born. And it's not just, the Jesus, that been celebrated around winter solstice. Normally, that's where they celebrated in the sun cycle, the birth of the sun gods. Many cultures have sun gods. Many religions have sun gods. There's always a hero. So it's the culmination of the hero, and it's the culmination of the sun's archetypal journey through the zodiac. Now it's getting really ready for what? To become a king. And when you're a king or queen, just to be gender neutral here, I'm sorry, it's always a little easy to use the traditional associations. If you want to be a king or queen in your own, country, in your life, as a metaphor, there are certain maturation initiations that you have to go through, because you have to be able to let go of that which you call yourself and serve the people. A good king is a servant. A bad king is not. serving. He's a boss. Like this. That's a, Maurice posted this. I thought it was excellent. This is a boss, and that's a leader. Now that's a king. Come on, people, I'm ready to go into death with you. I'm not just sending you into death. I'm coming along. Like I'm also in the war. A boss would say, you guys, you go there, and if you don't go, I'll shoot you in the back. Yeah, I'm sorry, that shooting in the back is actually historically something that happened in Russia. If the Russian soldiers did not go into war with the Germans, if they did not meet them, even if it was just equipped with hammer and some tools, Stalin would have his men shoot them. They were laying ready with guns pointing at their backs. So they met death anyway, any direction. Absurd, huh? But that's really bad leadership. It's like leadership through threatening, leadership through force, leadership through violence, leadership through abuse. And that's the story of a lot of people growing up in their own homes. That is a lot of what we grew up with. Fear, induction of fear, like the appeal to fear. If you don't do this, what will you be in the world? Yeah, it's not funny, but it is kind of funny when you realize that, wow, why are we using these stupid methods of authority when they're not working? And I think, going back to this picture again, this kind of thing, it also led to a very destructive relationship to what we call God. So I totally understand that people do not believe in grace or God, and that we think we believe in grace or God, but when it's time to actually practice a bigger path, um, we forgot. We forget. We don't have the faith after all. It's like we suddenly just forget that we have this connection and that there is grace available for us, and we don't believe in it. We hope, but we don't. We've seen too much pain, huh? And I think, I'm flipping a little bit back and forth because, it's not always ending up in the rhythm you imagine. It's like, no, now I want to go here. Because I think, in order to understand truly what it is, what kind of work that Saturn is doing in your chart, you have to understand who are we really. And I think that's something that's not been discussed too much in the world of astrology. There is no clear model of human beings. What does it mean to be me? Who am I? And over in the temple in Delphi, there you have this inscription that says, know thyself. And remembering thyself is actually the path to healing. There is the moment you remember who you are, you will be healed. And when I mean remember who you are, I mean remember who you truly are. That's what we call realization. Oh, so I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not this, I'm that. So we can start from what is achievable for most people today is to perceive their souls. A lot of people have this capacity to actually feel their soul, feel the soul power. I consider the soul to be a point above the head, almost like a crown, yes. And it keeps the molecules of the body together. And when the soul decided, nah, this is not going the direction I wanted, it's pulling back its life force and the molecules dissolve. We have death. And then it decides, oh, I have to try over again. We put a new soul and put a new body. And it starts feeding and giving life to persona. Persona is the vehicle that holds everything together. It's probably that voice inside where you go, I am. And we might think we are our persona, but that's just one of the sheets. That's just one of the sheets that we go through. This is one of the, I'd like to say, spaceships that we create so that we can take body, we can take form. The persona is connected to, it's these three underlying bodies: mind, emotion, and body. In mindfulness therapy, we normally say to people like, you are not this, you are not that, you are not your emotions. It's getting some perspective on what goes on in your life, right? And it is true, you're not your emotions. You feel your emotions, you're happy, you can feel your emotions, but you are not them. And you're not your body. You know that. Like you have a body, you're happy you have a body. It's a very nice thing to have a body if it works. It's not a very nice thing to have a body if it doesn't work. But if it works, it's a great thing to have a body. It's like super, you can have fun with it. But you're not your body. Eventually something else will take over. You will dissolve and go into something stardusty again. So you're not your body. You're beyond your body. And you're not your thoughts, the mind. This is very hard for people to actually get acquainted with the idea that you're not your mind. You have a mind. This mind is very gratefully helpful for you if you can use it well. But the thoughts that you sometimes experience that are more stressed out and distractive and destructive, when you realize you're not these thoughts, that these thoughts are passing, boom, like this, you understand that you are the creator of this body, this persona. You are the one you've been waiting for. You're the captain of the ship. You are the one who has the power to go in and correct mind, emotion, and body. It takes time because of these gravitational things, the traumas that happened, the imprints that we got. And you can see this is also a model of, of a human being used from a transpersonal psychological point of view, where you have the higher self up here, the star that keeps everything together. This is your conscious self. This is where you are right now, and you're consciously listening to me, hopefully. And this is where your consciousness is at this moment, here, now. And whatever comes into that field of consciousness, when I say something about astrology or something, you start picking up stuff. You go into your data bank. This is your data bank. It's always there, of course, but you don't access this information every time. You take in and out into your conscious field different bits and pieces of information, depending on where you focus and what's triggering it and what you need. We're like a computer, and we have all kinds of operational programming that helps us navigate life, that helps us be in life. We're not the same person all the time. I put on different masks. I'm a mother, I'm a teacher, I'm a lover, I'm a dancer, I'm a healer, I'm a this, I'm a that. I have many aspects. I'm many. And therefore, coming in and out of the unconscious, maybe now that I'm talking about something Saturn, something karma, you start thinking into your unconscious and you start picking up, you start connecting dots, and you're accessing this memory bank that is in you, putting it all into some workable perspective. You might also go into a higher state of mind if you're sensitive, and you just start traveling a little bit, instead of activating some of the more challenging emotional experiences that you've had in your life. You start putting it into this eagle mode where you start seeing things, right? And that's when you get into the super conscious, to the higher consciousness, where we find our inner teachers, where we find our um, visions, where we find our insights from a higher level. You might call that more Uranus, Jupiter, Saturn energy. This unconscious, subconscious is Pluto, Moon. Yeah, well, Saturn can be here too. The internalized mother and father, the internalized child, and so on and so forth. This is a model to actually meditate on if you want to understand astrology from an energy point of view, if you want to understand astrology from a very practical point of view. Huh? What are archetypes? What are complexes? Who are you? Mm. And I think that's very important, this process of getting to know yourself in every aspect, in every aspect of yourself, because there will be a point of initiation where the soul is calling you to do something bigger. And that's the point of the birth of the master. That's the point of the MC, the culmination point. That's the birth of Capricorn, Saturn in your chart. It's what Saturn does. It pushes you gently out of different developmental processes and it says, you're ready now. Now's the time for a bigger challenge. And the bigger the challenge, the bigger the pressures and the more need for healthy routines regarding the personal self. Otherwise, something will eventually be destroyed. We have to have sustainability in order to have a safe journey. You have to have food to get to the top of the mountain. Otherwise, you'll starve while you're walking. Now, transpersonal initiation is not for everyone. I'm definitely certain, because we spend so much time developing as human beings in our personal selves, because so much stuff has happened to the personal self, the subjective self, that is not good, it's not healthy, that we need to heal, self-confidence issues and anything that is bothering you. Yes, so the transpersonal initiations, I had to tell you, I was a little interrupted, so I'm sorry, and I had to take a little break. Distractions. One of the things, like your phone goes beep and you're so curious, you just have to watch. It's like, who is it? Is it him? Ugh, I'm such a geek. But the thing is, I got distracted. I'm sorry, I had to admit it. And that was such a funny point to get distracted in, because it was just, it was just there at this. Are you ready? Are you ready to not be distracted by petty little details that the world is throwing on you? Are you ready to prioritize? One of the most, there are some key words for Saturn: priorities, patience, structures, form, and recipe. I'd love to use this word. It's like there's a recipe for things. And this is, what Maurice means in a way when he says, like, Saturn is what corrects you and aligns you to natural law again. Not the kind of constructed law that we have in our societies. No, the natural law, the big universal laws, the things that drives creation, like what is creation? How do you create? It's like the law of mathematics, or the law of metaphysics, or the law of love, or the law of resonance, of the law of karma. These are the laws. So being able to understand these laws without saying, but that's not fair and I want it different, and being the child, resisting the laws. This is what Saturn is helping us to actually be aware of ourselves, to the degree that we can see that, oh, yeah, now I see this is my tendency. Okay, all right. Being able to see that without going into blame game mode is harder. I have a very tough Saturn, and I spent a lot of time in my youth ruining myself, trying to, uh, uh, having such an, I would, trying to almost kill myself, I would say, but I never actually attempted any suicide. It was just more trying to destroy myself. And I can laugh at it now, but it was destructive when it happened. And it was like 10 years of my life where I couldn't deal with the inner voice. Now, I have a very strong Saturn. It's Saturn, I'm a Capricorn ascendant, and I'm Saturn on the South Node in so many aspects to my personal planets and my planets in general. And Saturn is on the South Node in Gemini. So it is a very strong Saturnian expression. And whatever I'm a Saturn in Gemini, how do you talk to yourself, right? So this kind of like, instead of, I was so aware of myself. Oh, look what you did. But I was so judging myself as well. How can you do this? Be shameful. Feel shame. Like I was kind of, I remember me trying to get away from the voice in my head. It's so long ago, it's another life, but this is what I'm stuck with, this memory of how can I get away from that judging voice inside of my head? Why am I judging myself so harshly? So being aware of yourself is one of the most difficult things in life, because it means you have to be compassionate to be able to accept what you see. We can't always be proud of ourselves. We do a lot of stuff that's below our dignity because we don't feel we have the courage to do differently. Saturn requires you find true courage inside of you. Saturn requires that, yeah, okay. I will try to get away from my past and try a braver expression and say no, but then you don't say no, and then you end up in a situation where you're abused. Somebody's taking advantage of you, etc. That's exactly the kind of below your dignity that Saturn can be very. So what did you do? Well, in a way, you didn't do nothing, and that was the problem. But how is it that you treat yourself? Like, is this honorable human being? Did you just lie? Did you just make up excuses? Like that's Saturn. Like, why are you, instead of saying, why are you excusing yourself? Saturn on the inner levels can say, excuse me, what kind of loser are you to make up excuses for yourself? Yeah? Liar, cheater, It can be pretty rough. The judgment is clear, right? That's what you did. And if you have this awakening consciousness where you realize, oh my God, I just did wrong to another human being, you will definitely feel bad waking up. I've had some extremely self-defeating moments when I realized what I've actually done to another human being. And believe me, it hasn't been like bad. Really, it hasn't been bad. For Saturn, it's like every little corn is weighing. It's like nothing. You can't do nothing before the judgment is there. It's so precise. This is truth. This is bullshit. So, understanding and learning and correcting your mistakes and your flaws, your weaknesses, is very difficult in a world of harsh judgment. Oh my God, did you see what she just did? That's the way people judge each other. So of course that we internalize this and start judging ourselves is very natural. It's very natural to that's something that is easy to understand. And people attack themselves with killing guilt. They're like, oh my God, they're like, I want to, I can't live with myself, like self-content. And I believe it's the root cause of any mental illness. I believe it's the root cause of deep addictions. I believe this self-hatred is a problem in so many levels, that for you to start healing yourself would mean, and that's why we are so looking forward to Tim and Georgia's class on shame and deconditioning, because it would mean healing that very part that is judging. It would mean allowing certain space for making mistakes. It would mean holding space, using the heart as well, not just the mind, being compassionate. And it's a much more sustainable way of living than just going out fist first and going kill yourself. It's so funny. You know, like I've seen the tendencies so many times. People do something, they feel they fail, they get rejected, and their first impulse is to try to destroy themselves. It's a very odd human pathology of self-destruction, and it's something that Saturn stops after a while, because really, we don't have time for this. You just have to get over it and just, again, have to get over yourself and focus on the shit that actually matters. That's later in the process. First, we have to get to know these dynamics and understand that they are there and why they are there, and how can we heal them, and how can we open the heart, and how can we move beyond that point of self-destructiveness. If you want to walk to the top of the mountain and you're always destroying yourself, I can't do this, I will never make it, I will never make it. If that's the mantra that goes through your head while you're trying to get to the next level of the mountain journey, you're not going to make it, of course. And this is the problem with the element of fire when it's under pressure, like when there's not enough fire. And this maturation of the emotional expression is one of the deepest and most difficult initiations that goes through in Capricorn. What are your emotional tendencies? How much are you driven by addictive, codependent desires? What are your glamours and fears? Your ideals? It's really, you know, the maturation of the emotional expression is dealing very much with the water element. So if you have Saturn in a water sign, you will be dealing a lot with maturation of emotional tendencies and expressions. Organizing the life principle is, you know, getting your shit together and actually working the magic in Earth. This is very much an Earth element kind of Saturn, right? And having the faith, you know, to get to the top. I didn't put that in. That is very much fire. And understanding, correct understanding of everything is very much air. I'll go through the different elements a little later, but that's just like the basics, so you get it. These are the initiations. So wherever your Saturn is, in whatever sign it is, you will have some experience of a test or an initiation or something that goes on relating to that particular element in, you know, especially the element. It makes it easier to understand if you go back to some understanding of the elements. Like the basic initiation comes through the element. It's often a little hard to understand what is it Saturn is doing in my chart, you know? Except giving me hell. But we need to go through these initiations so that we can get to this wonderful word here, integrated personality. This is when the third eye, which is associated with Saturn in some traditions. So let's not just get, you know, like people are like very rigid, like which planet to which chakra? Yeah, well, depending on which astrologer and healer you ask, you will get a different answer. So this is not a fixed model, I'm sorry, but yes, since a lot of, this is a major gland that seems to have a supervising effect on all the other glands, it's very natural to associate this capacity with Saturn. It's growth, it's regulating our growth. And that's very Saturnian, isn't it? So the integrated persona is not operating from solar plexus or from the heart or from the pelvis. I want to marry you because you turn me on, that's not, it's a good reason to have some fun, but it's not necessarily a perfect reason to get married. So, like if you're being run by these energies, then your life might be running away with you. And if you're like an idealist and you live in your heart all the time, it's like, oh, it's the soulmate kind of love thing. Ooh, you get washed away on some fluffy romance thing, and you spend 300 lives trying to move beyond illusion, seeing that, you love a lot of people, but love is not always enough, right? And also, if you're in a relationship where you feel emotionally safe, but none of the other things are present, then that's not enough either. So just to show you, the integrating principle of the third eye would just take all these three sub-levels of procreation, emotional interaction, and love, and connect them to a whole. That's when you see that these are just underlying energies. This is the bridge. It's the integrated persona. You're in control suddenly. Super. I also bring in a dweller on the threshold. I just want to show you and make you reflect a little bit on, because one of the things with Saturn and evolution and growth is that we tend to become a little impatient while we're growing. I want it quicker. and the dweller goes, yeah, but I don't know. Maybe you don't want it after all. Maybe I'm here to protect you. The dweller on the threshold is like somebody's holding the door and says, no, not yet. You're not ready yet. I don't want to send you off on a dangerous journey unless you're really ready, right? It's my job to protect you. So just have faith in me, the dweller says. There will be a time that the opportunity arrives. And until that moment, you just have to trust me. I'm taking care of you. And it's very important to remember this if you go through a deep process where you feel you have to wait forever for something to manifest. So easy to be stuck on base camp, you're almost at the Mount Everest, but then you get a flu and you're stuck on base camp at 5,000 meters above sea level, and you have to be there for such a long time just waiting for your body to rebuild its strength so you can take the last 3,000 meters and go and greet the top of Mount Everest. But now you're stuck there. This is it. You have to wait now. Why? Because your body is weak, you need nourishment, you need to get stronger, you need to fix these things that made you exhaust yourself to begin with, so that you can manage the rest of the journey. There's always a reason behind everything that happens in your life. You might not be able to see it, and you might not be able to understand it, but you can accept that it's there. That's having faith. It's all you've been asked to give is faith. That's meeting God halfway. And this patient thing is very interesting because, this is the Earth trine. The Earth trine, you're probably aware of Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn. And of course, anything Capricornian is related to Earth time. He used to be known as Kronos in his old form. His Greek equivalent is Kronos, his father time. There's a time for everything. Like now's the time for this, now's the time for that. You can see Saturn is an organizing principle. It organizes life and it organizes growth. and it puts everything into rhythm. Today, if you just go on Facebook, you get immediately information overload, and there's no rhythm. There's no rhythm. And when there's no rhythm, people get exhausted. They get depleted, actually. It's chaos. It's overwhelmment. We don't know where to begin. So organizing time, prioritizing time, focusing and concentrating with the time that you have is very, very important. Oh, sorry. Oops. I wanted to bring out my little pen. So here's the second house, which is understanding the resources available. Now, a lot of people who wants to go on a journey of more, like I want to redo my house, or I want to do this and that with my children, or I want to get into better shape, or I want to have a new career, pretty much every aspect, or I want to divorce, which is like, I need a new marriage. It's like, wow, this is not working anymore. It's always money that it comes back to. It's like, but do I have the money for that? Really? Do you have the resources available? Do you have time, money, energy to do it? Energy, time, money. Money, time, energy. These are actual resources. There are only 24 hours a day. You live this life, you get this life. That's what you get for now. And nothing else matters. I don't care. You might think you live 1,000 billion lives, but this is it, this moment. That's what's real. The rest is just abstract. As my friend said, you can't get drunk on the wine you had yesterday. And it's a wonderful quote to remind you about something that is not there. So you have this moment. This is a very precious moment. What you do with it is very important. But do you have the energy to do something with this moment? A lot of people spend their energies, slaves, for instance. Let's say you do some slavery work, you feel like you're slaving for some company and they are taking a lot of your energy, and you get something back though. You get a little money, but just enough to survive. It's like you feel like a slave, huh? So the energy, like, you don't want to get up, you come home, you're completely depleted, and instead of go to the gym, you're stuck on the sofa, wanting to please yourself. We have something called the reward circuits in the brain. Like, now I abused myself so much, so I need some sort of reward. So I'm going to have ice cream and chocolate and dee-dee-da-dee-da-do. Because I need a reward. I need to feel like I deserve some vacation because I slaved so much. You're not going to want to listen to Saturn then that says, oh yeah, well, it's now you've been doing this work. Now you have to go to the gym and do the work to your body, or you have to do this and you have to go study because you want to get to the next level. So you still have to study, but there's no energy to study. This is a huge problem for people. We are kept so occupied, but we don't use our time correctly. And that has to do with self-discipline. If you spend all your time on Facebook or all your time stuck in some binge watching some show, you're not going to be able to learn astrology. And the more of this information overload that we get into, the more we deplete our capacity to stay focused and concentrated. All the distractions. You just saw me. Mercury in Pisces, Saturn in Gemini. I get so easily distracted. One of my problems has been, or was, I lost my focus completely. Something happened when I was like 17, 18, and I could not concentrate at all. I had to quit school. I could not concentrate. The only thing I could read was astrology, which was a good thing, but that's probably why I turned out to be an astrologer. It was the only thing that was interesting enough to make me present. But the rest, I just dropped out completely. So this focus work is very important. Now, if you don't have this focus in your life and you need to work on it, now, of course, meditation, rhythm, routine, we get to the sixth house. So you don't have what it takes. Okay, let's work to get it then. If you need more money, you need more time, you need more resources to get your life to the next level, we have to put the elements in correct order. And this is, the regime often comes in, like the diet regime often comes in with Virgo, because I know exactly what you need. You just change this and you juice that and you do the greens here and the there, and you train and you practice and do. Now the Virgo overdrive mode is rigidity and like OCD rigidity, kind of frantic mode. That's not what we're aiming for. We're aiming for rhythm. Sixth house is related to rhythm. What rhythm is your life in? Rhythmic living, like your breath. Is your breath rhythmic, or is it off in some way or another? Is it off in the time, like off in the sense that it's, it's more, sometimes you breathe very quickly and sometimes you breathe very slowly. For instance, this is a way of seeing how much stress you have in your body, how your nervous system is working, and whether or not you are capable of flowing with everything that comes your way, with every task that comes your way, without resisting, without going into fatigue mode, without being tired or exhausted. Because that's what happens when the rhythm is screwed, when there's overwhelmment. The 12th house is the opposite to the 6th house, and this is the chaos house, the 12th house. Everything, all the big elements in life are just flushing over you so that you feel overwhelmed. So we need to get our elements in order. We need to put everything out on the table and say, okay, I need a little water, a little earth, a little air, and a little fire to get going. What does that mean in practical terms? So it's very interesting, this earth trine, and you can look at the earth trine in your charts as well to see how this manifestation goes, to see how this putting into form and structure works in your life. When you see people with no earth, you think, they lack some form. There is no form for them to express themselves through. There's a lot of talent, but maybe there's no form, there's no structure, there's no capacity to ground this form into earth. And that's just very, very painful. The unrealized genius, it's always painful to see. Yeah, so we need to have this leadership as well, in order to this is also something that the captain says, all right, we have enough food, we have enough navigational skills to get us to where we need. I'm the captain, so I will now tell you where to go. That leader quality on the inner levels, that capacity to know for yourself whether or not you want to go there or not. That capacity to instead of asking your friends, what do you think I should do? You just go in, you go inside. You go inside and you ask. You go inside and you feel the energy. If there's fear, you will be insecure. If you're uncertain, you will be insecure. Now, if in your uncertainty you ask other people, you will get uncertainty back. And you will be even more confused. Or feel even weaker in your capacity to make good decisions for yourself. So organizing time, showing leadership, and have realistic expectations is part of the Capricorn archetype. You have what you have. You don't have more, but you do what you can with what you have. That's getting over yourself efficiently, but I don't have enough. No, that's the problem. There's never enough. It's always never enough.